Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Jiggy Jaguar Show. This is Roger Homefield of the Joe Citizen Show. I'm sitting in for Jiggy today, and we've got our regular co-hosts today, great guys, great authors. We've got Don Mazzella. He's an award-winning author who's written both true-to-life creative fiction to technical business nonfiction. Don Mazzella anchors nationally syndicated radio programs and appears as a guest on radio or TV virtually every day, and that's including today. His new blockbuster book is, quote, The Tide Pool Trilogy, and its first volume is called Ruler of the Seas. The Tidal Pools trilogy is about unsung individuals affected by World War II and its aftermath, as written with the unique style and talent of Don Mazzella. And we have back with us also IQ, or that's Mr. Al Roousooli. Al Roousooli is an Iraqi exile. He's an Arabic speaker, scholar, and author. He's eager to debate any imam or infidel, and he's ready to answer any question. And he asserts that the Quran is not a holy book, but rather that for the last 1,400 years, it's been a roadmap to total war with all non-Muslims on planet Earth and Western civilization in particular. IQ Al Roousooli is among the foremost authorities in the world on the subject of Islam. He's the author of his monumental trilogy called Lifting the Veil, The True Faces of Muhammad and Islam. And you can find him also at www.alroousooli.com. And boys, nice to see you again. We saw you briefly just yesterday by accident. Don and I ran into each other, and I loved your sweater, and you have it back on today. So anyway, welcome. Nice to see you again, Don and IQ.
Glad to be with you.
So the other day, Tuesday, Jiggy had an interesting guest, Frank Vernuccio, a pretty substantial guy. And he rattled off about how, Trump's first days in office, that for the first time we can wake up and not worry about how the government is going to try to destroy America, but we can finally wake up and see how things are going to start to improve. It was really quite uplifting, and I'm sure you guys feel happy about all this stuff. But where do we go from here? We are starting to get resistance, of course, from the left wing. They can't help themselves. I guess it really pains them to see America succeed. But I guess the battle is not really going to exactly stop, is it, IQ?
Never. But most important of all, and I repeat this again and again, Trump must try to find out the 12 million votes which were lost in 2020. Because the whole premise, literally the whole premise of what the liberals and leftists have been saying is that Trump is a Hitler, and that he lost fairly and squarely the 2020. And because he lost, he had J6. The minute you destroy this, everything collapses. And then what will happen? You can put on trial, literally on trial, every single one in Congress, like Pelosi, Nadler, all of them can go on trial for treason, every single one of them. And I'm not exaggerating, it's a fact. Don't dismiss it, it's so important. How could Biden out Trump, Barack Hussein Obama, by 12 million votes? How is that possible? And then what happened to them in 2024? How come they just vanished? I don't know if Donald agrees with me.
Oh, I bet he does. I mean, but is there anybody that believes that Biden got 80 million votes?
Sorry, 81.
I mean, how can anybody possibly believe that?
Correct, but they believed it. The whole structure of the Democrat Party literally stands on that single item. That's it. You've got to find them. And you prove that 2020 was stolen beyond the shadow of a doubt. That's
absolutely.
It.
Absolutely.
I guess I look at it differently. The past is the past. Let's look for the future, and let's make sure it doesn't happen again. That to me is what we should be doing today, And if you look at what Trump has been doing these 4 days, I think he's more or less decided that that's what he's going to do. Look to the future, make sure it doesn't happen again. And I, for one, say hats off to him. You know, we can all wallow in our own self-pity, but why not just get up and hit the guy in the nose and go forward? I find it interesting. You know, a friend of mine is a presidential scholar, and I was talking to him last night, and he said he could not find in the entire history of the United States a similar occurrence where the incoming president has pardoned people before they were charged. You know, I mean, or an outgoing president. So, I mean, the American people, I know you disagree with me, IQ, are not stupid, you know. They look at it, and I think it's significant that, I don't know if you saw today, President Trump said, you know, Biden didn't pardon himself. You know, he didn't. Why not? You know, pretty difficult to do, but it can be done. I think that it's going to come back and bite him in the behind. I really believe that this new attorney general will indict Biden. And my friend, the presidential presidential scholar, said that he believed that she will indict him in the next 6 months. What do you say to that, IQ?
I wouldn't be surprised, but you are wrong. He did pardon himself. The fact that he pardoned his son starting the 1st of April 2014, he protects himself by pardoning his son, literally. But we'll see how it goes. But I disagree with you on the 12 million. It's not going backwards. If you don't learn from history, you will repeat the future. I want to stop the repeating in the future of what they did in 2020. And the only way to do it is to find what happened, why it happened, how it happened, and who is guilty, and put them on trial. But that's another story. I love the future. Let's look at the future.
Yeah, and I agree with both you guys. But Don, here's the thing, and we discussed this the other day with Frank Vernuccio. The thing is, the future, but we can't sweep this under the rug because then it'll happen again. George Washington would have hung God knows how many people that have been involved in this treason that's taken place over these years, 10 years really, but specifically the last 4 years. He liked Benedict Arnold personally. It was no pleasure for him to hang Benedict Arnold, but he did it because he had to do it for the country. And to just say, well, Hillary tried to frame Trump to be a spy for Russia, no big deal. That's in the past. Let bygones be bygones. We just can't afford to do that. It's not a matter of these people going to jail so much as it is exposing them to the American people. The American people have to understand how this country was virtually almost taken down like a cow in a rodeo, and we almost lost our country for good because these SOBs decided they wanted to have the power and control of the country. So I agree with you on one hand, Don, let's move forward. But on the other hand, we can't brush it under the carpet because the same thing could happen again. Like Pelosi never should have been able to get away with tearing up that State of the Union speech. Are you kidding me? So they just got away with one thing after the next. They ran rampant. And I see we have a star that has just popped on the screen.
Wow, 4 more years. Yeah. Let's go.
Please join in the conversation. I don't know if you heard we were saying, Don was saying that, well, the past is the past, but let's go forward into the future. And I'm saying if we don't take care of what's happened in the past, it's just bound to happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, we just have Josh Bernstein has just joined us. He's a terrific patriot. He's got a great podcast. He's written wonderful books. Nobody loves the country more than this guy, Preserving Liberty. In fact, I have your book, Josh. Welcome to the Jiggy Jaguar Show.
I am doing fantastic. Great to be back on the program with you. Where's Jiggy? Is he around?
I don't know. I'm filling in for Jiggy. He's water skiing in Las Vegas or something. I don't really know.
Oh, he's probably hanging out with the honey bunnies, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. I think I do know what you mean.
Yeah, he has an alter ego.
I'm going to jump in here.
Basically, he's around there. He does this politics thing. But then he likes to escape over to the pretty girls and the adult movie stars and things like that. So God bless him.
Layla,
How you doing?
what would you like to do? Pretty girls or politicians?
Oh, of course, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Of course we would want to do politicians. No, I'm kidding. Pretty girls. So I can't blame him for that, right?
Well, is it okay if I cry on Josh's shoulder about my personal thing that just happened the last couple of weeks and why I feel like I have to reinvent myself and I've lost my identity now as a softball player? Josh, a couple of weeks ago, I caught COVID for the first time ever, okay? And I'm a foolish guy sometimes. I lent my ivermectin to some other people.
Oof.
And it wasn't returned. And other people did return it, but this last person didn't. And to make a long story short, I got 1 day's supply from my doctor because, unbeknownst to me at the time, the FDA still has not approved ivermectin for COVID. It's not bad enough that 250,000 Americans died by not having ivermectin, according to Dr. Harvey Risch, and I will take his word over the FDA, who are, to me, are criminal mass premeditated murders. We can get into the whole thing about the Emergency Use Act of why they disallowed ivermectin. But to make a long story short, Josh, I had enough medicine. I had enough ivermectin for 1 day. I had never been sicker in my life, but I had this for 1 day. You know what happened? It knocked it out completely. In fact, it knocked it out so well that very next morning I called, they called Beeper MD. I had them come over to test me. Why? Because I was ready to go play ball again. And I wanted them to test me to see if it was okay for me to go back to the field, if I would be jeopardizing anybody. That's how good I felt. The thing is, Josh,
it's an amazing wonder drug. It truly is.
But I was out of it.
Yeah.
I was out of it except for that one night. And guess what happened?
You only need a little bit of it. I'll never forget when I got sick. I can't even remember when it was now. I think it was 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And I was really, really sick with it. And I ended up getting ivermectin, but also hydroxychloroquine. And I had all the different things, zinc and vitamin C and, and D3K2 and I guess the essential fish oils and all that stuff. And the one drug that is escaping right now, I'll think about it here in a second. Basically, I got all of that stuff, and within 3 days, I was feeling better. But at the time, I was told that I should stay in one area, one room for 12 days, which I ended up doing. But I did. I felt a lot better when about probably 2.5 to 3.5 days. That's when it started to kind of kick in and really make me feel better. But I've taken it just as a precautionary thing. Like if I go to do a speech,
right,
if I'm going to Turning Point, for instance, I would take one in the morning, and then you're interviewing all these different people, you're around all these different people, you're shaking hands, people are taking pictures with you, all this stuff. So you're close to a lot of different people, and so when I would come home, I would take one more just as precaution.
Right,
and I've noticed that. Doing it that way, I've always had no issues really. So,
well, what happened, Josh, is like I say, I just had 1 day's supply. It knocked it out completely. I felt great, but then it was the weekend. I couldn't get any more. I was going to come in from Texas. I had to wait 3 days, and then by the time I took it, it just didn't have the same effect as far as if you're thinking about playing softball at my age and having the same energy. And I feel because I was not allowed to get it because the doctor, the one day that he gave me, he prescribed it for dewormer. Like, this dog and pony show.
Yeah,
like,
it's
this
ridiculous.
cloak and dagger bull crap.
Yeah.
We have to run around and hide when everybody knows that the damn thing works,
Well,
and they still withholding it for the American people. Is a disgrace.
I'm connected to the frontline doctors. Obviously, I know Dr. Pierre Corey, the one who wrote the book, The War on Ivermectin. And so I do have access through other doctors and things like that for telehealth, types of seminars or whatever with a doctor real quick so that you can get a prescription. So if you do run out, or if you need any extra, or anyone out there for that matter, they can always reach out to me and I can kind of share some of that information because look, it is a wonder drug. It's been around forever. Quercetin, by the way, was the drug I was thinking of, along with vitamin D and zinc and vitamin C and all that good stuff. It acts as a natural barrier. The other thing people can do, and I've talked about this at length on my show, is you can rinse with a certain mouthwash. And the mouthwash has a chemical in it called cetylparadigm. Cetyl, C-E-T-Y-L, paradinium. And what that is a natural antibacterial element that they add to not all mouthwash. You have to find that specific, chemical in it. And what it does is it's an antibacterial, so it's kind of a poor man's ivermectin. And if you feel like you're getting a scratchy throat or you feel like you're getting sick, if you have that mouthwash and you gargle and do it maybe 3 or 4 times, you'll wake up the next morning like you never had anything wrong with your throat at all, and it'll kind of keep and stave off from getting sick or from possibly catching anything else. So I do use that not daily, but I use it probably 2 or 3 times a week, in particular, just as an extra precaution. And it's fine. It's healthy. You can buy it over the counter. You can get it at Walmart or wherever. It's Crest something or other. I could send it to you if you need it. But that's what I've used.
Mouthwash that Rock Hudson used before he kissed Elizabeth Taylor. No.
Well, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. But I got it from the late Dr. Zelenko. Who I think was murdered, if you want to know the truth, by Big Pharma.
Well, talking about Big Pharma, we should remind the folks that the reason that ivermectin was trashed and everybody told that it didn't work and that it was a horse dewormer and you were laughed at if you talked about it. I interviewed Jeff Hayes, the filmmaker who did the movie The Real RFK Jr. and The Real Anthony Fauci, and he came out that 1 and 1 is 2, being that there's a thing called the emergency use authorization, and you can only get that if there is not a viable option. Ivermectin was the option. Yeah. So what they did was they trashed ivermectin. They trashed anybody that said it worked, including heavyweights like Dr. Harvey Risch. And that way, Big Pharma didn't lose out on the hundreds of billions of dollars for the vaccine. And I was so naive, Josh. There was a time where I just wouldn't believe that our government would do anything like that. But to think that they would kill a quarter of a million of Americans, Americans.
Why wouldn't they? They're not interested in anything but what's good for them. And they look at us as useless eaters. Apparently. They don't want as many people in the world because they want more of it for themselves. And that's what we're up against. We're up against globalists. We're up against globalism versus nationalism. And thankfully now with President Trump back in office, it's going to be nationalism. And that's the healthier way to be. Every single country should be a nationalist country for their own rights and their own people and their own needs, right? I mean, China should be a nationalist for China. Uruguay should be a nationalist for Uruguay. Whatever. Argentina should be a nationalist for Argentina, Mexico, whatever, in the United States. And so I think if you do it that way, rather than collectively trying to get everybody under some type of globalist umbrella where you're being controlled by unelected bureaucrats, I think that's the worst thing we can do. And that's why the American people have rebelled so rapidly and have embraced President Trump in this new golden era and age.
Yeah, this is really a fantastic thing. And I'm curious to see how optimistic IQ is, because, Josh, I got to tell you, and Don, I've had friends that were telling me about, the globalists and the WEF and this and that, and they were wringing their hands. They're saying it's too late. They control the currency, the digital currency. They control this. They control that. We don't have a chance no matter what happens. And these same people who were quite educated about the subject are now very optimistic. They're all excited about what Trump's doing. And it's like, because I said before, well, Trump will do this. They said, no, he won't be able to. They are excited. They are optimistic now. And that makes me feel terrific. IQ, are you smiling?
I'm smiling from ear to ear.
That's great.
Well, here's one thing I'm not smiling about. Normally, in any normal situation, if a president-elect came in and issued 200 executive orders on day one or day two, you'd be, terrified. I'd be pulling out what hair I don't have left out of my head. But in this case, I'm not terrified because these were necessary in order to fix all of these issues and problems. But I'm not a fan of executive orders. And what has happened is, because of the gridlock in Washington over many, many decades, the legislative branch has given up for the most part. And they've said, you know what, we can't get anything done. We can't pass legislation, or at least that's how it's been in the past. So we're just going to punt that responsibility to the executive branch, and we're going to let you use executive orders, which were never, ever intended for the purpose in which they are being used for. They were used for, naming a post office in Kalispell, Montana, or a federal building in, McLean, Virginia. That's what they were used for. They were never supposed to be used as quote unquote alternative legislation. So what I want to see, and what I want to do, and what I want to, what I wrote about in my book, and why the title says "Save America and Create Permanent Freedom." That's what I'm after. How can we take these gains through these executive actions that President Trump has had to put forward to fix these things and turn them into something permanent, rather than political whack-a-mole, when in 4 years or however long it could be, when there's another Democrat in office, and they can just undo them all again. So I want permanent freedom. So I'm hoping that we can turn some of these things into actual legislation. Now, there's a good sign. There's a great sign. They just passed the Lake and Riley Act. So within only 2 days of the new administration, even with all those executive orders, we were able to pass actual legislation in the first 48 hours. That's incredible when you think about it. So maybe there is a new sheriff in town and a new way of doing things in Washington. One could only hope.
I think we need a couple more red waves, Josh. In 2 years, we need a red wave. We can't have like a 1-2, a majority in the House, because look, there used to be bipartisan legislature not that long ago, just a few years ago, right? And the Democrats never were like a pack of feces stuck together like they are now. And that's exactly what they are. And we need to blow them out of office for the next God knows how many election cycles, until they decide that they love America, because it seems that all they love is power, and they don't care who they get the power from, or what jerks and creeps they have to run with, whether they're communists or this or that. They don't care who they run with, as long as they have the. Josh, you're shaking your head. Yes, it sounds like it's an outrageous thing to say, but you're agreeing with me, correct?
Yeah, of course I am, because look, the bottom line is, the Democrats are weak. They're feckless. They're ineffective. There's nothing they can do. They don't have any power. It's gone. It's completely been obliterated. So if President Trump can't pass his agenda, it will not be because of Democrats. It will be because of Republicans. It'll be because of the Susan Collins. It'll be because of the Lisa Murkowskis and the John Curtises in Utah. Imagine that. We get rid of Romney and we bring in an even worse rhino in Utah. Unbelievable. So that's where the pressure campaign is going to have to constitute. That's where it's going to have to originate. And I'll tell you right now, as good as Elon Musk has been for President Trump, as far as, helping him get elected and doing all these other things, his best job could be as Trump's enforcer, his consigliere, if you will. Okay? And then all he has to do is get all these senators, Republican senators and Republican House members, put them together in conference rooms without the media, without their cell phones, without anything, with already ready to be signed pledges, and lay down the law and say, everyone in this room needs to pay attention right now. The American people gave President Trump a mandate to govern and to change the way Washington works permanently. That is what you are all here to do, and you are going to help President Trump do this. If anyone in this room does not sign this pledge that you will vote along party lines for his cabinet nominees as well as his policies, I have the money, the power, and the clout to put you all out. And that's what he needs to do. He needs to have a come to Jesus talk and moment with these folks and let them know that the old way of obstructing people in your own party are over, or if you don't do it, so is your career.
You won't believe it, Josh. You won't believe it. But I wrote an article which I gave to America Out Loud saying exactly that. This is the only time in the history of America. The iron is white hot. You can change it and mold it the way you do it. The only way to do that is to go after those bastards and tell them, you follow the line or you are dead. Simple.
Exactly. I agree 100% with IQ. 100%.
Except that there's just one problem with all of that.
Come on, Contrarian. What are you going to say now?
I may be contrarian, but I look at it differently. But remember, in 4 years, there's another election.
Yeah.
And the president won't be on the ticket.
Okay.
And what you're saying to people is you have to sacrifice your personal ambitions for the good of the party. And that ain't worked in the past.
Well, here's the thing. If you're talking about principles, then they should be America First principles. That's what the American people voted for. So here's where I disagree with you, Don. If we can pass permanent legislation, we can insulate ourselves from a future Democrat president that wants to undo some of the things that have already been done. So it's really not about executive action. It's about turning that executive action into permanent solutions and legislation to make the country permanently more free and better. And so that's why the threat against the rhinos is what's needed in order to facilitate that. So that's where I disagree. And that's where your old thinking of bipartisanship in Washington, where everybody scratches everybody's back and gets kickbacks and handouts underneath the table when no one's looking, is the problem. And with all due respect, we get along and we've had lots of interesting conversations together, but you are completely wrong on this one. But you did mention something that I agree with. We do have a very short window of opportunity in order to facilitate permanent change. So I will give you that. You are absolutely correct.
I would think that we would have an opportunity to have a supermajority in the next 2 to 4 years. Am I just like whistling pie in the sky?
It depends on what we do in the next 2. We've got to pass permanent, legislation. I would say one of the first things we have to do, and again, the Laken-Riley Act was great because they were able to add to it and enhance it to make it even stronger and better. But what we need to understand is we've got to protect our elections. We need to pass the Secure Voter ID Act, which basically would guarantee and mandate every single state to have photo ID. Remember, Harris won every single state but New Hampshire, quote unquote, won because it didn't have voter ID requirements, right? So every state that had voter ID requirements, she lost, and President Trump won. So that's all you really have to know about that. So we need to pass that. And with that, we need to make it mandatory that no non-citizens can vote at any level, whether it be state, local, legislative, or at the federal in any of our elections. If we pass those 2 things into law, we've already solved 35 to 40% of our problems moving forward.
Agreed.
It was ignored. Also, it was a real question of whether the federal government has the right to mandate a state and local election.
Well, no, the federal government are not the ones that control the elections. It is done at the state level, right? We know that the plenary power has been vested in the state legislatures to oversee, conduct, and do audits and all that other stuff, but also count the votes and all that individually in the states. However, there can be a federally mandated voter ID law that doesn't interfere with the implications of the elections or the execution of the elections at the state level.
I think some people would disagree with you, Josh, on that one, because
So what we have to do is destroy those people who disagree.
Well, look, there's
Vote 'em out.
federalism and there's states' rights, and I'm a big states' rights guy, so I understand where Don's coming from. And if they were to try to, I guess, dictate to the states how they can run their elections, that would be an issue. That would be a problem. But if they were to pass a constitutional amendment, for instance, where you had to have mandatory voter ID, the states can do whatever they want to do other than that, but they have to adhere to the fact that they have to have a federally mandated voter ID for their people to vote. I don't think that's overstepping much. I think it would be challenged, but I don't think it's overstepping much.
I've talked to a lot of people about that one, especially when we first talked about it several years ago. And they all say the same thing. The people who know the Constitution will say the same thing. Those powers not specifically granted to the government shall remain within the states. And that voter mandates, etc., still reside within the states, not within the government. So it'd be kind of...
Yeah, but again and again, we come to the same point of departure. The Trump government, the administration, can go to the people of the state and tell them, hey, guys, is this the type of leadership you want?
Mm-hmm.
And then put Republicans to take over the state and in every state. What Josh said is definitely the bottom line. There's no question. You cannot save the republic by just sitting on your laurels. You have to change the whole atmosphere.
All I point out to you is the Equal Rights Amendment has been floating around for 27 years. I mean, if we had to depend on a constitutional amendment, which I believe is the key to it, it's not going to happen in 4 years, and it's not going to happen in 12. Because
why it can't happen? If something is logical, something is common sense, how is it possible that anybody should go against it? I want to know. You can't go on a flight without ID. You can't go to a bank without ID. You can't drive a car without ID. So what the hell is the problem?
You can't buy a house without ID.
Thank you.
I mean, you can't do anything in this country without an ID. But yet it's okay. Yeah, but yet it's okay to not have an ID to vote. That doesn't make any sense. And look, the bottom line is they're not just pushing for that. They're going to push for hopefully term limits, which I would agree is going to be very, very difficult to get passed. The only way you could get term limits passed, in my opinion, is if the people that are voting to put the term limits in were somehow grandfathered into that program. So in other words, let's say you pass term limits for the House, for the Senate, for everybody, and they say, as long as you stay in your seat, as long as you're not defeated or you can just die in that seat, whatever it is, the next person that takes your seat is locked into the term limits. And I think if you pass something like that, I'd say within a 7 to 10 year period, you would be able to have enough turnover probably to get the majority of the people in a term limit type situation.
And then we wouldn't have Nancy Pelosi's and Mitch McConnell's.
Within a 10-year period, we would have everybody locked down because not too many people are going to be past 10 years. There are a few, right? Look at Nancy, look at Chuck, look at Nadler. So, yeah, there are those people that survive multiple terms. But for the most part, they usually don't. So we would knock out 65 to 70% within the first 5 years, and we'd get the other 25% within the next 10 to 12. And then you'd have term limits permanent. It's the only way you're going to get people to vote against their best interest to make money and lobby themselves.
And as far as getting things turned around, look at the opportunity we have with the state of California.
Yeah. Yeah, look, President Trump can go in there and he could clean up. Obviously, we need to take care of Western North Carolina first. Absolutely. They get all the money. They get all the resources before California. But once they're made whole, because they've been abandoned for so long, and they're doing well, then yes, I think President Trump can go in there, Army Corps of Engineers, architects, builders, construction people, go in there and figure out a better way to rebuild, maybe with different types of buildings that have metal roofs, that have built-in sprinkler systems on homes. I mean, look, we cannot go back to the same stupidity. And one thing I'd like to see is a full-on investigation, not just into Gavin and Karen Bass and the other DEI idiots, but how about Linda and Stuart Resnick? Okay, let's go after the Resnick family. This is the company. These are multi-billionaires that own the company, the wonderful company. They make pistachio nuts. They make halos and cuties. They make Fiji water and a bunch of others. They have the largest organic farm in California. And in 1994, due to all of their money, they paid off California's water authority and they purchased the rights to the Kern Water Authority. Their farm uses 150 billion gallons of water a year. That is double, almost triple what Los Angeles County uses. So if you want to know why your hydrants were dry, yes, DEI was a big part of it and these idiots that are running California, but look right to Stuart and Linda Resnick. So I would tell people to boycott all of their products, Fiji water, wonderful pistachios, the pomegranate juice, all of those things, because they are water barons. That's who they are.
And I'm thinking in terms of the next election, Josh, when I mentioned California, to like if that state flips red, just imagine all the things that could happen for this country.
It would be amazing if it flipped red. I don't believe they voted for a Republican since George H. Walker Bush, if I'm not mistaken, in 1988, I think, is the last time California went red. You had Schwarzenegger as governor, but I wouldn't consider him a Republican. So maybe Garvey, could run, or the other guy that was supposed to beat Karen Bass, that would have been a hell of a lot better. Maybe someone like that can run, or maybe one of these actors, I don't know, James Woods or John Voight or something like that, Mel Gibson. Who knows? Maybe somebody will get in there and want to run, and they'll have big enough name recognition to get the people that aren't involved in politics, but they see the name and go, oh, I'll vote for that guy. Kind of like how Arnold won. But you need a more conservative version of Arnold in order to save California. Yes. So I don't know. California's got a lot of problems. Just don't come to Arizona. That's all I can say.
Josh, I'd like to swing over to IQ's wheelhouse and Don, and let's go back to like what happened in New Orleans. And IQ has said, along with myself and Dave Gobbets, other experts, that that it's the ideology that needs to be exposed, and that Sharia law needs to basically be outlawed in the United States. And they need to lose their tax exemption as far as these mosques. Any mosques that promote Sharia law or madrasas that promote Sharia law, they would have to be shut down and lose their tax exemption. But what I was very upset about, Josh, and I called the FBI. It was I did a little show about it. It was really quite pathetic. It ended up being a comedy, which is more like a tragedy. I called them about see something, say something, and I called to tell them, you're talking about copycats, you're talking about this and the lone wolves. I said, and you're talking about that he was radicalized. I said, excuse me, you're missing the whole. It's not about individuals. It's about the ideology. But they don't want to touch it. They don't want to touch the ideology. So my question, I suppose, is, and IQ, pick up the ball here, but I laid it out. Like I said, actually, IQ said it. What we would need to do is have Sharia law outlawed and have their tax exempt status taken away. And people have to understand that the ideology that it's not a religion. We're all brought up to not want to go against a religion. And that's where they've got everybody tied up into knots. But by their own definition, they are not a religion. By their own definition.
Right, it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion.
And by Islam's own definition, they're a political ideology, a military ideology that uses religion in order to create a one world ummah, a one world country under Sharia law. So it's been said that until we can convince the American people that no one is against a religion, but that the ideology of Islam must be compared to Nazism, as an example. Guys, take the floor.
Go ahead, IQ.
Well, my suggestion about Sharia is to be banning Sharia in every country on earth, which is not Islamic. That means in every European country, in Latin America, everywhere. Why? It's simple. Sharia declared war against all of humanity 1400 years ago. Islam is not a religion. It's a cult belief system, the cult of Muhammad. I can give you 30 examples. They don't exist in the Quran, but it's followed by Islam. Why? Because Muhammad did it. For example, give you a simple one. The Quran says, if a man or a woman commit adultery, you beat the shit out of them 80 times. You beat them 80 times. But they don't do that in Muslim countries. They stone them to death. Why do they stone them to death? But the Quran, but Allah says, you beat them. Why stone them to death? Muhammad did the stoning. Why did Muhammad do the stoning? Because in the Torah, in the Jewish tradition, they are stoned to death. He copied the Bible and he implemented into Islam. Another one. Why do Muslims not eat pork? Did you know pork never existed in the whole of the Arabian Peninsula? Because pork needs 5 gallons of water a day. There is not enough water in the whole of Arabia to feed a herd of pigs. They didn't exist, but he copied it again from the Jews, from the Bible. In the Bible it says you are not supposed to eat, among other things, the pig skin or pig meat. So he copied it.
I'm 100% Jewish, and man, do I love my baby back ribs. Bad Jew.
I want to know one thing.
But no, wait, IQ, wait, real quick. There's a reason why IQ doesn't show his face, folks, okay? Because he's brave, he's a patriot, he's someone that I've known for many years, and
I'm not stupid either.
And he's not stupid either. Exactly. Yeah.
In England today, they will hang me in a second.
They would hang him in a second. I hope there's not a fatwa against him or anything, but that's why he doesn't show his face. And God bless him and keep him safe. But he's absolutely correct. He's correct because he's examining what he sees that is infinitely wrong in his own religion. And so, yeah, I commend you for being able to speak out against that. But you're absolutely right from the standpoint that this Wahhabism that they practice is just not compatible with Western civilization. I mean, you're talking about 7th century savages that have these rules that they believe, based on their God and all that. And they don't believe in peace. They don't believe, I had a conversation with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. This is many years ago, gosh, 2014 or 15, I think. Mm-hmm. And I was having a conversation with him, and he's a nice guy. He's a microcardiologist in Glendale, Arizona. He's wealthy. He does great. He's a smart man. He's Syrian. And we're having this conversation, and he was talking about how Islam was a peaceful religion. So I said, with all due respect, Dr. Jaffe, how can you say that this is a peaceful religion when one of its basic tenets is to deny the existence of other faiths? If they were acceptant of other faiths, then they wouldn't react with violence. So therefore, how can you sit there and say that it's a religion of peace when it denies the existence of other faiths? And he couldn't answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
He was completely flabbergasted. Like he was like making things up. He didn't know what to say at that point. And that's really the mic drop of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't recognize other people's right to practice or other people's right to exist and believe in their God, then how can that possibly be a peaceful religion? And only IQ can probably answer that one.
Yeah, I'll give you three answers. First of all, the Muslims say that Allah is the same as the God of Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. This is the biggest bullshit story in the history of mankind. I can prove, based on the Quran alone, on the Quran, in 15 minutes in explanations, but in 60 seconds, that Allah is most definitely not the same as the God of the Bible. That's number one. You speak about Wahhabism. With all due respect, it's wrong. Wahhabism is based on what? On the Quran. Sharia is the Quran. The Wahhabis believe in Sharia. The Sunnis believe in Sharia. The Shia believe in Sharia. Every sect of Islam believe in Sharia. So don't split it into Wahhabism and this and that. No, it's Islam. It is Sharia. You destroy Sharia. You stop Sharia. You close the mosque. You close the madrasas. You close all the so-called institutions of charity. Did you know, never in the history of Islam did they give any money or help to Christian countries which were in distress? While every single time Muslim countries are in distress, the Christians are the ones who help them. Do you know that? Nobody mentions. But nobody mentions it.
True. Yeah.
Nobody mentions this. Nobody. You give hundreds of billions to Somalia, the enemy of America. To Saudi Arabia, the enemy of America. That's not only the America. These people are the enemies of every human being on the planet who's not a Muslim. You just said it. The Quran has the supremacy of Nazi Germany. But Nazi Germany was racial only for their own people. The Quran is for Ummat Muhammad against the whole of humanity. And they speak about imperialism, Western imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
Western imperialism lasted 180, 200 years maximum. Islamic and Arab imperialism continues even today, 1400 years later. It's still there.
Right, exactly.
And nobody mentions that either. Nobody mentions that.
Well, no, I think it's interesting that the left likes to run around and say, oh, well, not all of them are, extremist and not all of them are violent. And okay, fair enough. I'll never forget what Brigitte Gabrielle said on a panel many years ago. She said, okay, fine. Let's take your argument. Let's take the left's argument. And let's say that you're right. Let's say only 25% of all of them are violent or that are killers or would want to use violence for political gains and political means. She goes, and she described how many Muslims there are in the world. It's like 1 billion or 2 billion or whatever it is in the world. And she said, if 25%, that's 400 million radicalized Muslims in the world. So you're right, maybe not 100% are radicalized, but even at 25%, that's 400 million. That's more than the United States population. And the lady on the panel just was like flabbergasted. She didn't know what to say because Brigitte was correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brigitte always said, well, the radicals run the show and the alleged peaceful ones are irrelevant. They reap the benefits of it, but they don't do anything. They don't say anything. And it's very interesting that you brought up the contradiction about Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, because that's been a bone of contention for quite a while. He preaches peace and tolerance, and yet there's a contradiction there because Sharia law is, unless they come out and condemn Sharia law and say, no, we don't hate Christians, we don't hate Jews, we don't want to take over the world, we don't want to replace your government, then the contradiction just sits there like a big albatross. And it doesn't make any sense.
Which is why President Trump put back the travel ban onto some of these countries immediately, because he understands that.
Look, you have CAIR, C-A-I-R, the Council on American Islamic Relations. You
terrorist organization.
What are they still doing here, Josh? Why are they still in this country where they have okayed what happened on October 7th? They're perfectly fine with putting babies in ovens. What are these SOBs still doing having offices in the United States of America?
Yeah, forget about 7th of October. It's got nothing to do with 7th of October. They are Muslims. They are Sharia-compliant Muslims. Every single member is a Sharia-compliant Muslim. By definition, they are enemies of every human being on the planet Earth. Forget about only Americans. They should have been removed from America.
Well, October
nothing
7th just underscores it,
Nothing has
IQ.
been done. The FBI knows about them. The CIA knows. All of them know about these things. And
Right.
nothing has been done. Nothing.
I want to interrupt you guys and talk about something that Senator Kennedy from Louisiana talked about yesterday on the floor of the Senate. Are you aware that Soros, the man, one of the most despicable men on this planet?
Soros, you mean?
Soros.
George
Yeah,
Soros.
gotcha.
Yes.
Anyway, he now controls 400 radio stations. And
Yep.
are you all familiar with this?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah. Sadly, he bought a whole bunch of AM stations,
Yes.
and he's trying to drown out the conservative voices. But he's going to have a hard time doing that, because if he bought those stations and he fills them with left-leaning people to spew their hatred for America, eventually he's a capitalist at heart. Okay, yes, he's a far left ideologue, scumbag, should have taken a dirt nap a long time ago with his spawn of Satan's son. I get it. But the reality is that he's all about the money first and foremost before anything else, right? So what is he going to do eventually? He's going to have to understand that this was a bad investment, because you can't propagandize the people if they won't listen. And they're not going to listen to AM radio that is, predominantly left-leaning. So I'm not that worried about it from that standpoint, because they've tried it before.
Well, I'm worried about it. What's more, what I'm really worried about is how they accomplished it by subordinating the FCC.
Well, now with a new SEC chairman and a new chairman for the FCC, right, Brendan Carr, perhaps they can look at this purchase and maybe null and void it or reverse it somehow. It's a possibility.
Of course, it's a possibility. It's all rotten. Everything is based on rottenness. He cheats, he subverts, and then he lives in America. He should be quartered, not hanged, quartered.
Exactly. I agree. Quartered at the Super Bowl.
Thank you. I agree with that too.
I have one more question for you, IQ. How many virgins does a martyr to Allah get when he goes to heaven?
72.
All he has to kill is one infidel. That's it.
How many?
One. If a Muslim kills one infidel, he goes to the 72 virgins.
Jeez.
But of course, the more virgins, the more infidels he kills, the more virgins he will get.
No, it came up in with my.
That's a lot of training seminars. I'm sorry. That's a lot of training. I don't understand. Why not get whores instead? Why not 72 whores?
Josh,
then everybody would be killing everybody.
Muhammad's whorehouse. Muhammad's whorehouse.
I mean, to think that we're being hoodwinked.
That. Oh well, I did.
That we're being hoodwinked by the 7th century archaic ideology, and everybody is all tied up in knots to how to legally get rid of this cancer that we have. And I honestly believe that I got a 50-50 chance of getting murdered one day by an Islamist, because I'm of the age where I just can't keep quiet about it, because I too am for the underdog, and the underdog is the United States of America, and we're the underdog because we're so good-hearted that we just cannot bring ourselves to understand that Islam is not a religion, and that the ideology has to be exposed for what it is.
Yeah, but good-hearted doesn't make you stupid.
Well, we've been stupid, though.
Well, that's a different story. So you're not good-hearted, you're stupid. Big difference.
Well, let's talk about something. What should President Trump do about Israel? Should it be supporting them more, or playing a more even-handed game with the Middle East.
Well, we can't support Israel any less than we have, that's for sure. President Trump has been an excellent friend to Israel, moving the embassies, of course, doing those 3 peace agreements, the Abraham Accords on the way out before they stole the last election from him. So I think that he could be working once again with Israel to fortify them. I think that Israel and the United States can work together, their engineers, Army Corps of Engineers, all these different inventive people to figure out how to duplicate and replicate the Iron Dome in Israel over the United States of America. I think that's a big, big thing that hopefully they're all going to work together on. You know, I've said for the longest time when this old regime was in power that Israel should cease working with the United States and sharing intelligence information. Obviously now with a new crew in town, then they should absolutely go back to being able to share information and security and all that. And I think things will be better for Israel because President Trump is back in power. But what we don't want is we don't want a 2-state solution. You can't negotiate with terrorists. We saw what happened last time when they ripped up all of these different settlements that the Jewish people were on. And Ariel Sharon didn't end up too well after that, did he? I think that was a little bit of karma for doing that. And so the bottom line is the 2-state solution doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. The last thing we should do is give up more of Israel's land. I think that they need to eradicate Hamas, Hezbollah, and get rid of Islamic Jihad and all of the terrorists out of the area and say, hey, if you want to live in peace with us, this is what it's going to take. You're going to be under our control. And we're going to take care of you. And Israel already does that. That's the thing. They get attacked. They get hundreds, thousands of rockets shot into them. They still take care of their water supply, their food supply. They make sure that they have electricity, make sure they have internet service. Israel's doing all that.
No other nation in history, by the way, no other nation in history ever did that.
Right, exactly.
No nation supplied food and medicine and water and heating to the enemy while they're fighting each other.
No,
and every nation makes sure they
of the Israeli
starve them to death.
And Israel has been fighting our war for us. Israel has been fighting our war for us. We should be thanking them for everything that they've been doing. And of course, Biden nipping at their ankles, well, far worse, actually. And thank God Trump is back in there. But to this point, they've been fighting the war on terror on behalf of the United States.
Something else nobody mentioned.
No question about it.
Every single penny that the United States supports Israel with, the United States gets 10 pence more. But why? They supply her with the F-35. Israel today has the best record of F-35 fighting force in the world. And this information, all these advantages are fed back to the Americans, free of charge. So what you invest with Israel, you get back 10 times. The Iron Dome, every failure of Iron Dome is fed back to the Americans to make it better. So the investment in Israel is one of the best investments ever.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, sharing the technology in order to create the Iron Dome over the United States. It's wonderful technology. I mean, we saw just recently when you would see all of these, you know, these rockets just be boom, just blown right up, right outside, like this big giant, like, I don't even know what it is. It's like some type of like zone that they've created that keeps it from hitting the ground. And even when they did hit the ground, it was so rare. So imagine if we had one. Obviously, Israel is extremely small compared to the United States of America. I mean, we'd be talking a massive operation here to cover the entire United States. So I don't even know if it's, you know, even logistically possible. Perhaps it is. You know, maybe you start with New York and LA and some of the big cities and then kind of fill in the others as you go. I don't know. Not that I wouldn't want the entire country protected, but let's face it, look at how big America is.
Yeah, but you don't need it in every state. You need it to defend Canada. You need it to the East Coast. You need it to defend the West Coast. So only the periphery. can be protected. If you protect the periphery, no, nothing can go in.
Guys, we literally have less than a minute. Do we all agree that we have to take out the Iranian nuclear facility?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think what we need to do first and foremost is take out the mullahs and take out the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And while simultaneously doing that, then take that out.
Okay, guys, we're going to have to sign off. This has been a spirited roundtable. Josh Bernstein, what a great surprise that you popped on for us.
Well,
Thank
Jiggy
you so
said,
much.
"Hey, join me at 3." And so I've known Jiggy for a long time. We're getting to know each other. I've known Don forever. I've known IQ forever. So I don't want to miss that conversation for anything.
Well, it was
I'm
great.
glad you joined.
It was great being with all you guys, Al Roousooli, IQ, and Don Mazzella. This is Roger Homefield, the Joe Citizen Show.
Send me a copy of it, Roger, right away.
You got it. Folks, thanks for being with us. This is the Jiggy Jaguar
Fantastic.
Show.
Have a lovely week. Take
and
care.
to my audience, I'll see you in a little bit for Full Throttle Thursdays.
All right, gentlemen. Till next time. Oh, boy. That was quite good. Now I have to just figure out how to retrieve this thing. Let me stop the recording.
So, yeah.